Marvel Studios has created an unprecedented amount of accomplishments with their cinematic universe, with giving emphasis on the Avengers like Captain America and Iron Man pretty much being the main characters of the first 10 to 11 years of the MCU with the Infinity Saga. But now, since those characters have been gone for a while, there's like the big question of who should be the new focus of the MCU, and had to recreate the hype that's been kind of lost with the MCU with like the current phase 4 and 5 of the Multiverse Saga and like the Disney Plus shows and the declining quality. And we all know that Disney reacquired the rights for the X-Men and the Fantastic Four since they purchased 20th Century Fox back in 2019. So everyone's assumption was just, okay, after the Infinity Saga, after the Avengers, Thanos and all that, the next seeds to be planted for the future of the MCU would be Fantastic Four and X-Men, more importantly like mutant characters and how important they are to their new universe. But we haven't gotten that like at all. The only ties to mutant characters that are significant to the X-Men lore, like Charles Xavier, or we see like Wolverine, Hugh Jackman in Deadpool 3, they're not like the main 616 versions, right? So you see Hugh Jackman's Wolverine from the Fox universe, or Earth 838 with Charles Xavier. And there's been such a focus on introducing characters that no one really asked for or aren't really well known. It's just like, why not just get us to the X-Men? That's literally the thing everyone wants. And you solve the problem of who do you want to be the main focus of the MCU after Iron Man and Captain the Avengers. The only reason as to why I could see they haven't really introduced the 616 X-Men yet is due to that rumor like contract restriction where Disney legally cannot recast any main X-Men characters. So that's why like a lot of them that we've seen in the MCU have only been played by the Fox actors. And if that is true, then that does make sense as to why they can't do that until like 2025, 2026, which aligns with the release of Avengers Secret Wars. So let's say you do your Multiverse Saga, Avengers Secret Wars comes out, you implement as much cameos as you want or whatever, pretty much be like a swan song for the Fox version of the X-Men / mutant characters. They get their one last hoorah. Then after that, you do some sort of soft reboot where you now have a reason to implement the mutant gene into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, so you have like an influx of mutant characters now in 616. First thing you do is obviously you do like the Mutant Saga, so like phase 7 and onward, pretty much have the mutant X-Men be your center of focus of the universe that audiences will now resonate with. Every single X-Men / mutant character has to be recasted, like every single one. The only one that I would probably keep is Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool, because it makes sense. Well, other than that, everyone has got to go. The Fox X-Men universe isn't bad per se, but like their reluctance to be vibrant with like comic accurate costumes, it's always like black or muted colors, not to mention the inconsistent timeline logic of after what happened with Days of Future Past. So you're bringing new actors, you have new X-Men, and I think for the first X-Men movie, Wolverine should not appear or be a prominent member of like Charles' school or whatever. I think that there should be a slight like time breather after like Hugh Jackman comes back for like Deadpool 3 and most likely Secret Wars. Set the proper seeds to introduce like X-Men villains like Juggernaut, Magneto, Mr. Sinister, their Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, the Hellfire Club, etc. But specifically when it comes to Magneto, do not, and I repeat, do not make an attempt to try to quote unquote modernize the Magneto character in the MCU. I've seen that so many times online of people trying to like alter his core origin story of him being like a Holocaust survivor because it was like so many years ago and he'd be like super old in modern times. Simple solution to that, just have his mutant genes slow his aging. They're like a bunch of mutant characters that are like hundreds of years old and they don't look like it. Just do the same thing with Magneto. Like his origin story is so vital to his character that changing that, you're pretty much changing the character as a whole. What I would assume is that in the current MCU continuity, that the mutant population is a very small minority of people, in which the only people that we know are mutants are Namor and Miss Marvel Kamala Khan. And I'm assuming whatever multiversal ramifications happen at the end of the Multiverse Saga just significantly increases the mutant population in a new, like, I guess, rebooted era or universe of the MCU. And I also wouldn't be opposed if they took like the X-Men evolution route, or a lot of like iconic X-Men characters are on like the younger side, like they're more teenagers and like it's focused on like the school setting. And I think why that could be important is because there's kind of the question of how will mutants be hated amongst normal people in the MCU when so many superpowered individuals in that universe already exist and are beloved by citizens. And I think a cool explanation to explain why people hate mutants so much is how it could affect people's kids, as you can just hear like propaganda campaigns of how mutant kids are going to infect your kids with like the disease or whatever. Like the existential fear of an entire subspecies of people turning up, quote unquote, oh, they're gonna take your homes, your jobs, as like the mutant gene is like the next stage of human evolution. Even though Marvel Studios isn't gonna introduce the mainline X-Men for a while, they really have no choice but to use them after the Multiverse Saga has concluded, because what else do they have outside of the Fantastic Four, unless they just straight up reboot the Avengers again. But I don't know if people would want to become reattached to those same characters, but with different actors, a different Steve Rogers Captain America, a different Tony Stark Iron Man. Personally, I wouldn't be opposed to recasting those core characters after Secret Wars, but just don't make them the center of focus anymore. Just focus on mutant characters in the X-Men and Fantastic Four, of course.